Part 1. Socrates, the man who refused to be silent. He did not write books. He did not lead armies. He did not ask people to follow him. And yet, more than 2,000 years later, people still talk about him. Socrates lived in ancient Athens, around 470 BC. He was not rich. He wore simple clothes. He walked the streets barefoot. To many people, he looked ordinary, easy to ignore. But he was not quiet. Every day, Socrates went to the marketplace. He spoke to citizens, soldiers, politicians, young men, old men. Again and again, he asked questions, simple questions, dangerous questions. What is justice? What is courage? What is a good life? Socrates did not give answers. He listened, he waited, and then he asked again. Little by little, people became uncomfortable. He once said, "I know that I know nothing." This was not weakness, it was his strength. Socrates believed that pretending to know is more dangerous than admitting ignorance. Many powerful men claimed they had wisdom. Socrates showed them their limits. Step by step, through calm questions, he exposed confusion, not with anger, not with insults, only with logic. People laughed at him. They called him strange. They called him annoying. But they also followed him, because deep down they felt something important. Truth was being touched. Socrates believed that an unexamined life is not worth living. For him, life was not about comfort or success. It was about understanding yourself. Again and again he returned to this idea. To examine your thoughts, to question your beliefs, to speak honestly. This made him dangerous. Athens was proud of freedom, proud of democracy, proud of open speech. But Socrates showed a problem. People liked freedom, but they did not like being questioned, especially not by one man who refused to stay quiet. Socrates did not shout. He did not rebel. He did not attack the city. He simply kept talking. And sometimes, that is enough to change everything. Part 2. Making powerful people uncomfortable. Socrates did not argue to win. He argued to understand, and that made him dangerous. When he spoke to ordinary people, they listened. But when he spoke to powerful men, something changed. Faces tightened, smiles disappeared, voices became sharp. Again and again, Socrates asked the same kind of questions. You say you are wise. What is wisdom? You say you are just. What is justice? At first, people answered confidently. They spoke loudly. They used big words. But slowly, their answers fell apart. Step by step, contradictions appeared. Socrates never raised his voice. He stayed calm. He stayed polite. He stayed focused. This calmness made the discomfort stronger. He once said, "False words are not only evil in themselves, but they infect the soul with evil." For Socrates, speaking without truth was a kind of harm. Many leaders felt exposed, not attacked, exposed. They could not silence him with arguments, so they began to fear him. Young men followed Socrates everywhere. They listened. They repeated his questions. They began to doubt traditions, to doubt authority, to doubt easy answers. This worried the city. Athens valued order, reputation, stability, and Socrates was shaking all three. Not with violence, not with speeches, but with questions. He believed that wisdom begins in wonder. And wonder is dangerous, because once you start wondering, you stop obeying blindly. Rumors spread. People said Socrates was corrupting the youth, that he was disrespectful, that he made people look foolish in public. Socrates heard these words. He did not deny them. He did not apologize. He believed that discomfort is part of growth. Again and again he returned to the same place, the streets, the market, the center of the city. He could have stopped. He could have stayed silent. He could have protected himself. But Socrates believed that silence, when truth is needed, is a form of lies. And the more uncomfortable people became, the closer he moved to danger. Part 3. When questions became a crime. For many years, Socrates walked freely through Athens. He asked questions. He challenged ideas. He made people think. And then, one day, the questions stopped being tolerated. 3 men accused him publicly. They said Socrates did not respect the gods of the city. They said he was corrupting the youth. They said he was dangerous. These were serious charges. Athens was proud of its laws, proud of its courts, proud of justice. And now, Socrates was called to stand before them. Many expected him to change, to soften his words, to defend himself carefully, to ask for mercy. He did not. When Socrates spoke at his trial, he did not beg. He did not flatter the judges. He spoke honestly, as he always had. He said, "I am that gadfly which God has attached to the state, a small insect, annoying, impossible to ignore, but necessary to keep the city awake." Socrates believed Athens needed discomfort. He believed questioning was a duty, not a crime. Again and again he explained this calmly. The judges listened. The crowd watched. Tension filled the room. Socrates also said something shocking. He said that he deserved reward, not punishment, because he had spent his life helping people examine themselves. This made many angry. They did not hear wisdom. They heard pride. But Socrates was not proud. He was consistent. He believed that changing his values to save himself would destroy everything he stood for. He once said, "It is better to suffer wrong than to do wrong." For him, survival without integrity was not survival at all. The vote was taken. The result was close, very close. Socrates was found guilty. In that moment, everything could still change. He could suggest exile. He could ask for forgiveness. He could choose life. But Socrates did something else. He stayed himself. And that choice moved him one step closer to the end. Part 4. A choice he refused to escape. After the verdict, the court offered Socrates one last chance. He could suggest a punishment himself. Many expected him to choose exile, to leave Athens quietly, to live somewhere else, to stay alive. It would have been easy. Friends whispered advice. Supporters begged him to think carefully, to think practically, to think about survival. Socrates listened, and then he refused. He said that leaving the city would mean silence, and silence would mean betrayal, not of the court, but of his life's work. He once said, "Wherever a man is, there he must do the best he can." For Socrates, Athens was that place. Even now, the judges offered another option. He could stop teaching, stop questioning, stop speaking in public. Again, he refused. Socrates believed that living without truth was worse than dying for it. He believed that fear should not decide how a person lives. He said, "The greatest good of man is to converse about virtue every day." And he had done exactly that. The sentence was confirmed: death. Not because he was violent, not because he was powerful, but because he refused to stop asking questions. Socrates was taken to prison. Days passed slowly. His friends visited him. They cried. They argued. They planned his escape. Everything was ready. The guards could be bribed. The door could be opened. He could leave at night. He could survive. Socrates looked at them calmly. And he said, no. He believed that breaking the law, even an unjust law, would destroy the soul of the city and his own. He chose consistency over safety, principle over comfort, truth over time. That choice shocked everyone, and it made his final moments unavoidable. Part 5. The calm before the end. Socrates waited in prison, not with fear, not with anger, with calm. His friends came again and again. They could not understand him. They asked the same question: why stay? Why not escape? Why accept death? Socrates answered slowly. He did not rush. He did not argue. He wanted them to understand, not to agree. He said that every life follows laws. Some are written, some are inside us. And when you break the inner ones, you damage yourself. He once said, care for your soul. For Socrates, this mattered more than the body. The cell was quiet. Time felt different there. Outside, the city continued. Inside, everything slowed down. Socrates spoke about death, not as an enemy, not as punishment, but as an unknown. And the unknown, he believed, should not be feared blindly. He said, to fear death is to think oneself wise when one is not, because no one truly knows what comes after. He explained two possibilities. Either death is a deep sleep without dreams, or it is a journey to another place, a place where great thinkers continue their conversations. He smiled at this thought. For Socrates, either option was acceptable. His friends cried. They begged him to show emotion, to be angry, to resist. But Socrates remained steady. He believed that how you live matters, but how you die reveals who you truly are. The time came. The guard entered. The cup was prepared. The poison was ready. Socrates took it without trembling. He said his final words calmly. He reminded his friends not to forget what matters. Not reputation, not comfort, but goodness. Then he drank, slowly, quietly, without regret. Part 6. The Man Who Still Speaks. After Socrates died, Athens became quiet. No questions in the marketplace. No calm voice asking uncomfortable things. Life continued, but something important was missing. At first, many felt relief. The troublemaker was gone. The city was safe again. Order returned. But slowly, people began to notice something. The questions did not disappear. They lived on in the minds of those who had listened, in the students who remembered his voice, in the conversations that could not be stopped. Socrates never wrote a book. He never left a text behind, but he left something stronger, a method, a habit, a way of thinking. He once said, "Be as you wish to seem," and he lived exactly that way. His student Plato wrote down his ideas. Later, Aristotle learned from Plato, and through them, Socrates shaped how people think even today. He showed the world that courage is not loud, that power is not always force, that asking honest questions can be more dangerous than holding a sword. Socrates believed that truth does not need protection. It needs practice. Again and again, people returned to his words, not because he gave answers, but because he taught how to search. His life reminds us of something simple and difficult. It is easier to agree. It is easier to stay silent. It is easier to follow. But progress begins when someone asks, "Is this really true?" Socrates died over 2,000 years ago, and yet, every time someone questions an easy answer, every time someone chooses honesty over comfort, his voice is still there, quiet, persistent, alive.
Thanks! Please subscribe and like. Spin a new yarn with us every week.